The Marlins continue to play tough ball, splitting the series on the road against the Phillies and their stud rotation. Skip Schumacher has these boys playing. However, we now enter July and it is absolutely trade season. Interested to see how Peter Bendix approaches this one. In the meantime, the prospects, yes, the prospects are popping off. Everything's happening. This is Locked on Marlins.
You are Locked on Marlins, your daily podcast on the Miami Marlins.
Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings from England and welcome to Locked on Marlins, your daily Marlins pod. I'm your host, of course, Peter Pratt. Hit me up at Miami Marlins _UK. Happy Monday, guys, and happy 1st of July. We are into July and it is going to be silly season for the Marlins, no doubt about it. We're already seeing news littered around Twitter about, everyone that's interested in Tanner Scott, surprise, but that is just going to be the whole month of July is going to be fun. Make sure you're subscribing to Locked on Marlins. It's available everywhere you get your pods. Make sure you join us as well on YouTube. Subscribe on YouTube. Make sure you join me in the comments and let me know your thoughts. Where are these guys going to land? What are the trade packages going to look like? How active are the Marlins going to be? Tons of questions all month we're going to be looking at. Don't forget, of course, this is your team every day. And thanks for making Locked on Marlins your first listen of the day. And today's episode of Locked on Marlins is brought to you by Tax Network USA. Did you know that it's never too late to resolve your tax issues with the IRS? Don't wait. Reduce your tax debt and get help from a team of licensed tax professionals. Call 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/locked-on. Tons to get into, guys. The Marlins on the field are playing tough. No doubt about it. Went on the road to Philadelphia. Many people expecting the Marlins to be spanked. Many people expecting the Marlins to be swept. They were not swept. That was impossible even after game one, as they took the first game. Okay, against the lefty, Christopher Sanchez. Surprise, the Marlins offense didn't show up, but they took the next one and had a chance to win the series. A little minor bullpen infraction towards the back end of that one meant that the series was split. Collateral damage for the Phils as well, with Bryce Harper and Kyle Schwarber both landing on the IL after the first game. They joined JT Realmuto on the IL. So some big-time Phillies bats going down at this point. The Phils have been absolutely on fire. My question for the Phils, have they peaked too soon? We've seen you take a couple of guys out the lineup, all of a sudden the Phils look very, very different. And that's the same for all clubs, guys. And that's at the heart of the problems for the Marlins, particularly on the pitching side. You take away your best players, you're going to struggle to win games consistently. That's what we've seen. No Sandy, no Yuri, no rotation now at this point. But the Marlins at this stage are hanging tough, no doubt about it. And for those watching on YouTube right now, they're probably like, Pete, what are you wearing? What outfit have you got on? I just want to call out, it's just after 10:30 p.m. UK time here on Monday. I've just come back from tennis, had a tennis match. Wimbledon starts today as well, guys. So if you're watching your tennis and you like your tennis, make sure you're checking out Wimbledon, of course. Coming at you like Cleopatra from London. So I've been watching that, and that inspired me. I needed a game of tennis. So when I had one, I won the game. So happy days. But no time for a shower, straight into this one. I'll have to have a shower after. So from a Marlins perspective, super encouraging series. I mean, to go on the road in Philadelphia and take 2 out of 4, and really they left one, on the table, I guess. They should have really won that series. Was, again, super encouraging. Kudos to the guys, firstly. The guys on the field, they continue to fight. Even though the season's obviously cooked, we've mentioned it many, many times, they continue to scrap. They continue to fight. There's little milestones happening, little personal performances all over the show. Dane Myers getting an opportunity. I think he flashed, particularly in the fourth game of the series. Ranger Suarez has been absolutely incredible this year for the Phils. He was made to look village, made to look average, made to look poor by the Marlins offense. This Marlins offense that has been incredibly bad against left-handed starters all year long. They were shut down in game 2, but in game 4, they managed to piece it together just about. However, the bullpen couldn't hold. So I don't know. What are they? Are they 4-26 now against left-handed starters? I mean, man, oh man. Absolutely incredible statistics there on that one. But Dane, given the opportunity, I spoke about it on the Fish on First stream on Thursday night. Man, it feels like a long time ago. But, Dane has been left in this short side platoon situation, the same role that Avisel Garcia was playing. And so his playing time has been relatively limited. They haven't faced as many lefties as they did earlier in the year. And so for Dane, it's been a little bit less playing time, maybe than would have been, ideal. But, performances like the one on Sunday, he's taken those opportunities. Looked good in the field as well. Saved the run at one point where there was a runner on third looking to tag up, but didn't want to take Dane's arm on. So there's a little burst of production, I guess, for this Marlins team, this Marlins offense. Tanner Scott continues to be a beast, no doubt about it. But considering the rotation options the Marlins have had available to them throughout this series and, for the foreseeable, to be still ultra competitive in games, staying in games, it's a real testament to, to Skip, to Mel, to the guys piecing it together. And again, like I mentioned, that's what, they've hung tough with some big teams for the last at least 4 series. If we think back to the Mariners, think back to the Cardinals, to the Royals, now to the Phils, it's been super competitive games, the odd kind of bullpen explosion now and again. And just wanted to mention, by the way, before, because we've got a lot to get into here today, but Anthony Bender, I should have prepared this in advance, but I'm just thinking about it out loud right now. Anthony Bender, it's not the same Anthony Bender, is it? Because, when I think back to, his peak, so to speak, when he was working himself into the closer position, this feels like a very different Anthony Bender. I don't feel like he's fully rediscovered things in many ways, but, he's been serviceable, but still the ERA at 4.5, the whip at 1.4, the strikeout is kind of still 1 an inning, but think back to 2021 where he was really burst onto the scene, 61 innings of work, 71 Ks, a 106 whip. That feels like a very different guy now to 36 games, 32 innings, 34 Ks, and a 4.5 ERA and a 141 whip. It's, and at the moment, it feels like, I don't know, it feels like he had a good start and then had a bit of a wobble. I don't know. I mean, we'll see with Bender. I mean, we'll see if there's any interest in him, firstly. Could there be, could he be on the move? I don't even know. But you go and look at the Savant page in 21, and it's it looks great. Glowing red, right? Red all over the show. You go and look at 22, which was, shortened season for him, clearly. There was some issues there, no doubt. And then in 24, it looks okay. The velo's up there, and the average exit velo is low, which is, encouraging, 86th percentile on that one. Obviously, that slider still plays. But, yeah, generally for Bender, the eye test to me, you let me know what you think, but the eye test to me with Bender is it just hasn't been the same guy. Something's different. It's just not as effective. Maybe, there's a degree of trying to work your way back in, not do too much. I think there could be a bit of that going on. I don't know what's going on in my cap either, but anyway. Let's hit the first ad, and then I want to talk about July, because now July is a big milestone month for the Marlins, for Peter Bendix. I guess just one final point on the Marlins series against the Phils. Yes, there was a bullpen issue in that final game, but man, oh man, there was a Tim Anderson issue as well, with an absolutely routine, disgraceful error at shortstop. We haven't seen a ton of that from Tim Anderson. It's funny, as soon as he made that error, a couple of balls just zinged past him straight away. I'm not saying he could have stopped them, but for Tim Anderson specifically, it was a huge error in a massive spot that just kept the line moving for the Phils that were able to capitalize on that. Like I said, we haven't seen a ton of that with Tim Anderson, but if the defense isn't there and the stick absolutely hasn't been there, and he's kind of come back down to earth, I guess, after a little bit of a burst after this bereavement stint, and we approach July. Well, we're into July now. You do have to wonder, how much time, how many plate appearances is Tim Anderson going to be given at this stage? Like, the Marlins need to segue away from Tim Anderson at this point and maybe shrink his role a touch. I'm interested to see. We've seen Vidal Brujan kind of out in center field a little bit more frequently with, Jazz dealing with some stuff, et cetera, et cetera. So, I get it. Like, Tim Anderson, he's been dependable this year in terms of health in the main. And so I get it. He's, filling innings. But overall, like, it's been super discouraging overall. Like that $5 million, that experiment, that buy low situation has not delivered anything. And considering the Marlins were happy to move on from Avisel Garcia, the question has to be asked at this point is, how much time has Tim Anderson got? Nevertheless, let's hit the ads, and then we want to get into July generally. Also want to talk about some prospects. Also want to talk about Kim Ang. Kim Ang has a new job. Yes, sir. So we're going to talk about some Kim Ang action as well. So stick with us. Before we do that, firstly, it's time to let you know about our good friends over at PrizePicks. Yes, sir. And PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. It is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch those winnings roll in. Get in on the daily action with your friends and become part of PrizePicks community today. And don't forget, you can win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks. With as little as 4 correct picks, you turn $10 into 1,000. And if you're a promotions guy or gal, PrizePicks has got you covered every single week. From lowering select players' stats projections on Tuesdays to help your lineup hit, or getting your entry fees back if you have a losing lineup on Fridays. So what have you got to do? Simply head on over and download the PrizePicks app today and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's LOCKEDONMLB on PrizePicks for a deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. And this episode is also brought to you by our very good friends over at the Tax Network USA. We pride ourselves on getting you the latest news for your team, whether it's the offseason, the draft, spring training, or the playoffs. It's year-round. What else is year-round? Collections season. Just because tax season is over doesn't mean the IRS will stop coming after you for unfiled taxes. The IRS can garnish your wages, levy your bank accounts, and even seize your property. Don't let the IRS target you. Let the licensed professionals and tax experts at Tax Network USA go to bat for you. And with over 14 years of experience and an A+ rating by the Better Business Bureau, Tax Network USA has saved their clients over $1 billion in tax debt. Yes, you heard that correct. $1 billion in tax debt saved. Whether you owe taxes, have complicated matters that require tax planning, or finally hit that parlay this season and need help correctly filing, call 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/locked-on. And be sure to mention Locked On Marlins at checkout, and you'll receive a $250 discount off their services. Yes, you heard that correct. Use and mention Locked On Marlins at checkout and receive a $250 discount off their services. All right, guys, welcome back to Locked On Marlins on Monday, the 1st of July. Happy Monday and happy 1st of July. And July means one thing. Well, it means a lot of things, but one of the things it means is trade season. It is going to be absolutely heating up. And the Marlins continue to be one of the most obvious sellers at this point. There's definitely been, in the NL a few weeks back, it felt like everyone was truly in it. There's definitely been a few clubs that have dropped off a touch, I would say, and a few that have ascended as well. Like I mentioned, it felt like the Mets were going to be blowing everything up. The Mets look like they're going to be buying now, and so it's crazy how much things can change. So I'm very interested to see who's going to be selling and what they're going to be selling and, how active the market's going to be, et cetera, et cetera. But, some of the big clubs that started well have started to scuttle a little bit, really. I was looking recently, just this morning. The Yankees are having a bit of a poor stretch. The Orioles having a bit of a poor stretch, like big clubs in the AL, having a bit of a poor stretch. The Orioles have been impacted from a pitching perspective. Are they going to be active? Are they going to be looking to, add an arm or two? Do the Marlins have any arms available, injury-free, that can actually help the Orioles or teams like that is the question. For me, when I look at what the Marlins can offer at this point, you're probably down to like a Trevor Rogers or a Edward Cabrera at this point. Very interested to see if either or both of them are moved this deadline. I'm going to call it out that I'm actually going to spend a good amount of segments and a good amount of episodes in the next week or so, really deep diving on players that are available and potential landing spots. So kind of keep tuned for that. For Tanner Scott, he could literally land anywhere, for example, but there's other guys I'm going to look at, what could the fit be for Josh Bell? What could a fit be for Jazz Chisholm Jr.? What could a fit be for Nick Fortes, maybe? What could a fit be for Trevor Rogers, Edward Cabrera, and various other relievers? So I'm going to spend some time really digging into that, considering where the landing spots could be, and equally maybe starting to look at the farm systems of those respective clubs, maybe trying to suggest one or two potential deals. So there'd be not just Peter Bendix playing Bendix ball, but it's going to be Peter Pratt looking to see what deals I would make. So yeah, they probably won't be that good. But stay tuned for that, guys. I'm going to dig into that more and more. But, for me, for the Marlins in particular, the question has always remained for me, what do they do with Tanner Scott? When do they pull the trigger? On an expiring deal, and considering the way he's pitching right now, every time he's out there is building value, maybe not. Maybe it's decreasing value if he gets blown. I don't think so. I think everyone knows what Tanner Scott is at this point. But every outing there, every time it ticks away, is risk. Risk for the Marlins. If Tanner Scott gets hurt in any capacity at this point, then all of a sudden, their number one trade asset in reality at this moment, Kaiser Soze, and that's what they have to avoid. But the longer they wait, the longer the desperation creeps in, maybe. It's going to be so interesting to watch this Tanner Scott market. We've seen reports today that there's, it's heating up around Tanner Scott. The Phillies, the Orioles, listen, if you're a playoff team, Tanner Scott would add value. No doubt about it. It doesn't matter which team you are, you will be calling the Marlins about Tanner Scott. He's that good. He is that good. The question will be is when does Peter Bendix pull the trigger on this one? And how deep do the cuts go in the bullpen? I think that's the main questions really is we know Tanner Scott has to be moved. And we know they're going to try and move, obviously, Josh Bell, which I think they can. I think they can get something back there. But it's going to be all eyes on Peter Bendix. I'm very interested to see strategically how he goes about it. We've seen it with Luis Arias that wasn't afraid. If the right deal arrived, he'd pull the trigger at any moment. Any moment. The only other wild card, just to call it out, is, we're getting interesting reports around Sandy Alcantara. Interesting ones around the intensity is increasing with his workload. We know Sandy. He's like superhuman in many senses. I think the real wild card at this point could be, does a team try to take a gamble on, because it isn't a true gamble with Sandy, because he's under club control for multiple years beyond 24 at a very good number. The most likely situation, the situation that you would expect is Sandy comes back for the Marlins, proves his health, demonstrates he's back, and probably at some point the Marlins maybe look to make a move. It's the most likely situation. But considering the sheer volume of injuries across the league, and the ones that haven't happened yet, that will happen because that's just what baseball's been like in 24. So considering that situation, does a team try to make a move on Sandy Alcantara at this point? Knowing that he's hurt, knowing that maybe there's an outside chance he could be back, in September, maybe. And he could be around for a postseason run, maybe. But irrespective of that, even if he has a setback or whatever it might be, you know you've got Sandy controlled for the next few years, irrespective. I think that's the true wild card for the Marlins, the true wild card at this deadline. I don't think it's probable. I don't think it's likely. But I'm just going to call out that considering the reporting around him, that his workload is intensifying, this to me suggests that a club could be seeing that and thinking, okay, may not be able to help us in July or August, but maybe we're talking September. Sandy Alcantara can help us maybe in October. So one to watch, no doubt about it. I want to talk about Kim Ang and also some prospect updates from the Marlins perspective. It's fair to say that a few guys are absolutely popping off this year. No doubt about it. I don't think we've been able to say that for any of the Marlins prospects for many years. I think we have to acknowledge the impact that Gabe Kapler and the rest of the front office is having thus far. It feels like Gabe Kapler's the brainchild of the farm at this point. It's his area. There's others involved, but all signs thus far have been, in the main, across the board, positive from a Marlins perspective, particularly for some of the offensive guys. We've seen them develop pitches already, and we've seen that continue. But what we haven't seen is any of these prospects, the upper level prospects, the upper ranked prospects, really setting the world alight. But it feels like all of a sudden we're getting into a territory where that may actually come to fruition. Before we do that, it's time to let you know about our good friends over at FanDuel. Yes, sir. And I love sports, of course. I love them so much, I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games. And the sports, they just aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. All right, guys, final segment here with me, Peter Pratt. Thanks for making Locked On Marlins your first listen of the day, and welcome to July. It is trade season, guys, no doubt about it. Wanted to briefly touch on the Kim Ang news that dropped earlier on today. Kim Ang has seemingly accepted a role as like a senior advisor for a newly formed softball league, seemingly. So Kim Ang transitions from pretty much GM of the year into a senior advisor role for a softball league. Fair play to Kim Ang. I guess she was waiting this one out. Very interesting move. Wasn't quite sure what to expect with Kim. I don't know how long-term she sees this role, but I think, they're ramping this new proposition up. Feels that Kim can deliver some value. My assumption would be that there could be break clauses if required, if other opportunities arise, I guess. Sean Barrett was straight on this one. The UK GOAT. Hopefully we'll speak this week. Hopefully we'll find a time to get him on and hopefully get into this topic. But Sean was straight onto it, calling out to say that it's a little bit surprising considering Kim Ang's resume. It isn't just the Marlins, it's pre-Marlins. That this is the next role that she's accepted. Granted, she walked away from the Marlins. It was her call to void that option and move on. And the reason she did that was Bruce Sherman informed her of the new direction and the approach and the fact that they will be hiring for a president of baseball ops and all the rest of the staff around that. They're really going to follow the Rays model. And yeah, for Kim, it was, we'd love you to stay as GM. And I guess Kim felt a little bit hurt by that situation, or maybe felt that that wasn't the type of environment she was looking to work within. So it was her call, seemingly, albeit it was Bruce Sherman's call to change the course and the direction of the organization. Kim Ang didn't want to hop on board with that. And seemingly neither did Skip Schumacher, as he decided to have a mutual situation where they voided his team option for the end of this year. So Kim goes, it unsettles Skip. We get Peter Bendix and the rest. We'll see how it plays out. But for Kim Ang, leaves the Marlins. And I just want to call out as well, by the way, there's a lot of like discourse around this in the last couple of hours, saying, well, Kim Ang, like, was she really that good? Did she really deliver much value to the Marlins? The answer to that is yes. Firstly, I just already mentioned him. She identified Skip Schumacher as the next manager for the Marlins. She had to sell that to everyone. No one else believed in Kim on that. She believed in it. She nailed it. I look at pretty much every trade that Kim Ang made, and I can barely see a bust. I can barely see any busts. We're still realizing the fruits of Kim Ang's labor right now. Guys like Ryan Weathers, Jesus Luzardo, unbelievable trades. Unbelievable. The trades that she made last year to push the Marlins over the top. Garrett Cooper, gone. Segura, gone. Guys are moved on. They go and get Josh Bell, Jake Berger. Yes, they moved Khalil Watson. Yes, they moved Jake Eder. Guys that were in the system that were at one point highly projected. Jake Eder got hurt. He never really recovered. Khalil Watson, struggled mentally. I think he struggled on the field since as well. So you have to look at that and think, man, Kim was a super shrewd operator from a trade perspective. I barely saw a bust. She built a playoff roster. They were the 5 seed. Yes, they got lucky along the way and blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. Listen, baseball, there's so much luck in baseball. And the Marlins enjoyed the benefit of that last year. No doubt. All teams are lucky. All the time. So, yes, it favored the Marlins last year. But Kim Ang played a huge role in that. A lot of people pointed to say Kim gutted the farm. Kim is responsible because the Marlins have no farm system now. I don't agree with that at all either, by the way. For me, the farm system, yes, they made a few moves at the deadline, but the farm system is in a situation it is due to poor drafting and no development. That's not Kim Ang's role. Kim Ang's the GM. She's responsible for the 40-man. Nothing to do with drafting, really. Nothing to do with development in the minor leagues. Seems like the Marlins were inadequate in those situations because that's the feedback we're getting now. Because all of a sudden, new people in, new approach, players are embracing it and they're getting what they need. But that wasn't Kim Ang. It's not her role. And so, was Kim Ang responsible for drafting Khalil Watson and Jacob Berry? I don't believe so. I don't believe so at all. That's on DJ Spillett. He whiffed on both of them badly. And that's the reason the farm is in a bad spot. If you whiff on your top picks, your farm is not going to look good pretty quickly. And if you can't develop guys, even the guys that you draft in the mid rounds, if they're no progression, you're struggling. So Kim Ang gets a role. I'm interested to see whether Kim Ang gets another role with a major league club at some point. Did she do enough? Very interested. Mike Hill was exiled from the Marlins in 2020 after the 2020 campaign. I don't know how Mike Hill got the Marlins to the postseason that year, but it was incredible. That roster management was unreal from Mike Hill. Derek Jeter just thought, well, you're out of here. I'm getting Kim Ang in. To be fair, I mean, was it an upgrade? I don't know. Maybe it was. I mean, both of them showed value, in my opinion. I just think it's surprising that Mike Hill and Kim Ang at this point, neither of them coming, their last action with any big league club was the Marlins. And both of their actions were getting the Marlins to the postseason. And neither of them have managed to secure a role subsequently. I find it a bit strange, to be honest with you. I know Mike Hill's with Major League Baseball now. Maybe that's a less pressurized situation. I get it. Maybe. But yeah, for me, it remains a little bit of a surprise that, neither of those are in roles at this point with a big league club. I've realized the time. We're out of time, so I'm going to hit the pause button on the prospect conversation. I want to do it justice because it's right that we talk about Joe Mack. I don't think we've ever spoken about Joe Mack on this podcast on Locked On Marlins since I've hosted it. I don't think ever. So I'm going to make sure we do it justice speaking about Joe Mack and the June that he's had. I also want to talk about guys like Victor Mesa Jr. We also have to call out that Jacob Berry's hit 2 home runs in 2 days effectively. So is Jacob Berry back? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. By all accounts, he's still the number 6 ranked prospect per MLB pipeline. I mean, I'm not sure about some of these rankings, to be honest with you, but nevertheless, we're going to do that justice likely on tomorrow's episode, digging into some of those guys, at the minor league level that are legitimate prospects that are legitimately taking a step forward. It's huge for the Marlins. They need to find ways to churn out big league talent from their farm system. And it looks to me like the Marlins have definitely taken a step forward in that situation this year. We'll dig into that more tomorrow, and I look forward to seeing you then.